Welcome to the Rupert Neve Designs 5088 install. Hi everyone, it is a great privilege to bring to you today this video of an installation of a Rupert Neve Designs 5088 recording and mixing console. We'll cover the delivery, installing all the components, wiring, and getting it up and running. You really don't see videos this thorough on a 5088, which is something that I always try to achieve for my clients and my students. We plan on making some more videos on this topic, including the 5060 desktop mixer, the 5059 and 57 summing mixers, and the master bus transformer, to see how the sonic character of each is close to each other or not so close to each other across different budgets. To give you a little background of this story, I met Erik, the owner of this console, about 10 years ago when he came to PureWave Audio to try out a set of Focal Trio speakers. And if you didn't know, PureWave Audio is the first Focal professional dealer in the US, and I have one of the most viewed videos about Focal speakers that goes into depth about the technology. Well, fast forward a little bit, and I've been an integral part of Erik's journey in the recording world by supporting and consulting on his acoustic build-outs, selection of boutique outboard gear, and his education. I basically became a recording engineering mentor to him, and this led to consulting on his mixes for his own classical albums, mastering all his projects, and then drumming on his prog albums. We did a studio tour and some interviews about Erik's StudioR, which I will link below, talking about his build-out, his gear, and his most recent album, Twilight's Cold. In the middle of that, to my surprise, I found out he took some of my online courses, which you could find at thestudioedge.com. That is to say, he actually knew about me before he ever walked into my store. He didn't even let me know this stuff. So, in any case, he's on a new journey now, and taking it to the next level with the knowledge he has gained over the years. The one thing I tell my clients and students, don't buy something because someone told you to buy it. Buy it because you have gathered enough knowledge to know you need it. And that's exactly what he did with this console. On a funny side note, I was talking to one of my friends who consults me on marketing ideas and such about this 5088 install video, and I was trying to explain to her who Rupert Neve was. And then I finally realized, did you see that movie that Dave Grohl did, the Sound City documentary? That movie was about Sound City Studios, but more importantly, it was about the Neve console he was buying. And she was like, yeah, and Dave also has the same vintage Ford van that you're restoring. And I was like, whoa, like, how did she put that all together? Like, small world. And so what she was referring to is I actually have another YouTube channel about building custom cars. And when I went to celebrate building a hot rod, Erik and I did a music video together that included the car I built. The song is an atmospheric, rocked out version of Wicked Game by Chris Isaak. I will throw a link to the music video and also the documentary about how we did it, if you're interested, below. Well, it's time to install a Rupert Neve console. I am an authorized Rupert Neve Designs dealer, so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at buyit@purewaveaudio.com. And if you are interested in real education in the recording world, then check out thestudioedge.com. Let's hop to it. All right, Erik, it's a special day today. We know that you originally started in the box. You then hopped in and got the Raven touchscreens, the S3s. You got tons of boutique outboard gear, compressors, summing amps. What's going on today? What are we doing and why?
So today's a big day. I'm installing a 5088 console into my setup here. You'd mentioned some of the other things that I've played around with Raven touchscreens and some of the Avid avid equipment that I've gone through. Those aren't necessarily sound related things, but I was trying to find, for me, the best way to manage my workflows. In that process, as you mentioned, I started solely in the box, and then started playing with compressors, and eventually, through a long series of upgrades, ended up getting this summing console or summing box, the 5059 down there. Between that and the 542s, the tape emulators, I got hooked. That sound, the depth, the noise, or the headroom that comes with all of those pieces of gear, and the separation that you get in a lot of the tracks that I was doing with just that and that were utterly amazing. So I got hooked on the Rupert Neve line, or at least in offboard gear in general, and started shopping around for consoles, looked at the SSLs, looked at the 5088s, some of the other things, and found myself a deal on a 5088. So here I am. I'm going to disassemble everything here behind me and replace it with that console and a patch bay and a producer's desk. So I'm excited to see where that's going to take my sound.
Awesome. Well, let's start tearing down and make it happen.
Right on. Okay, so what we'll do is
I want to be careful I don't bump this guy.
yeah, we're gonna put it in like this
Okay.
and then slide it. Okay.
I'm gonna
roll it over to you a little bit.
And as soon as you guys lift, I'm pulling this.
Don't do the meter bridge. Do the back.
Hang on a second.
Ready?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I got this over here.
Support this end right here.
I think just to the line. I could be wrong.
We're a little too far over this way.
Yep, there. So
Another couple centimeters, but
So if we screw this in to the desk and then screw the console to this,
But is there holes?
yeah, there is.
I don't know if you know or not, but this is like
I know nothing about any of this stuff.
he just put a Lamborghini in the studio.
Really?
Yeah. This is the Ford GT. Ford GT of consoles. And so it's really interesting because it's very convertible. Like, you could buy just this part, and then this is a separate part, and then this is a separate part. And so this is like the mixing side of it, and this is the, do you want compressors, mic pre's, extra stuff. So it's a totally 100% configurable system.
Cool.
Yeah. I remember when these first came out, one of the trade shows I was doing, they brought just this, and it was like, it was this size too. It was like a 16 channel board, and it was just sitting on a desk, you know. It's kind of
I mean,
cool. I think as long as it's looped on this thing, hooked on this thing, it ain't going anywhere. And you could also leave it off and just have your unit up there too,
I
no?
want this under.
You don't want this?
I want this under because one cube's going there, one cube's going there.
Sure.
Just inside of the focals.
And I think if you have those a little bit more front facing, keeping that weight up.
Well, if I put the rack or the 500 series up here, that's gonna weight it down.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I think that'll be fine. Let's do some left right here.
And then you're saying you're going to put your control on or whatever it's called over there?
Yeah, the dock right here.
Dock.
Jake, where's that blue piece of tape underneath me? Is it directly below my ears?
I would say it's an inch behind your ears.
Okay, but left, right, am I centered?
Maybe a little bit to the left.
I need to go that way?
Yeah, just tiny. bit back.
What I'm looking at is, so I need to, when I sit, my listening position's on the group 1 channel.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not on the group 2 channel.
That looks about in the middle. I'd say so.
And we should measure that to see if that.
Can you grab the tape? It's in, just shy of 66, so 33 is in the center, so that's about right. What's the distance from the wall to the end of the desk? 5 foot. Ish. Let's move the desk.
Ish?
Yeah. Now let's try. Another inch.
Same way?
Yep. You know why we're doing this, Jake?
So that's Alan's throat room.
The acoustics. Okay, it's 59-ish. That blue tape on the ground. That's close. That's good. The blue tape on the ground is based on an acoustic measurement of all the treatments in this room. So when you sit with your ears at that blue tape, the response of the room is measured correctly, whereas if you sit back there on the couch, it's bass heavy. Like when you sit here and I play music, it seems a lot more bassy than it is if you stand here. That's because the sound energy has standing waves that build up in the back of this room. So the most important spot is this spot right here to make sure that I've got the right balance of sound on the treatments, because these absorb the reflections and the reflections here. So that's good placement on the cloud too, right? Let's get the speakers in place.
Okay. Do you need help? Or you want me to visually?
Look at that.
Ooh. Ooh.
That's fucking beautiful.
I'm on the blue, right?
Yeah.
So, I always like the tweeters. Kind of hitting my shoulder. Which seems like it's hitting the shoulder there.
All the custom transformers.
Felt good, didn't it?
Popping the cherry.
So we have the main power supply to the console on the bottom, and then we have our, I believe, 25-way power supply, which actually powers up all the individual components like the 5051s, 5052s. So we have a main power supply, which is this gray cable over here, and then all these are actually individual cables. We have now come to the wiring portion of the video.
Okay, so output. Apogee.
Yeah. You're going to the bottom back there?
Diagram says I'm going to the smaller patch bay, so yes.
Mm-hmm.
So analog out 1 through 8.
Should be going to the... You're going to lay that in the desk?
Yeah, I'm going to snake it underneath.
These are going into line inputs.
Check.
Mm-hmm. So, what's the very bottom of that? A direct out?
Yeah, that was what I was gonna wire into a snake that I could connect. I'm sorry, I would take that and put that back into the inputs on the apogee,
Okay.
but I'm not doing that right now.
So that's the interesting thing about this console is it's not an inline console.
Nope.
It's a different, it's a discrete beast.
Okay, we are all connected to lines
Okay, so you're saying right now that your whole penthouse is
connected to the
the
main.
mixer.
Yep.
Okay. What do you want to work on next? You want to work on your groups and monitors and all that?
Yes. So I need a XLR in the box of new stuff. There should be XLR female to XLR male, 6-foot run.
Okay. 2 of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
somewhere. There should be another wall plug.
There's one under your knee.
Oh shit.
It's literally right here.
Two.
There's one.
This is what I'm looking for. Alright.
So we got the main console. These are all the bridge items. 5051, 5052s, and then we got 3 power supplies. One for the bridge, or one for the meters, and then there's a set of fans in back, there's a set of fans in front. And so that is all the power, which is going to be going to this unit. We can see all the individual ones, and then one main one down there.
Like this.
Okay.
What do you think? That looks stupid.
Well, how does your keyboard thing work?
Yeah, actually, you're right.
It's gonna be floating over the top, maybe, or is it in the way? Because that's like that will come down here, right, and then float over the top.
I'm on the wall plugs. Would it be a follow to plug this into a power strip?
I'll just plug it straight into the wall. Then you can,
But then I don't have a place to. I can actually plug my keyboard into that.
yeah, you can put your keyboard into that, or the power strip into that, whichever. All these outlets on the same face?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's do this.
Right around there. That's pretty good.
Okay.
More wood.
Finishing touch.
Uh-oh. Gotta have it. So it looks like we have a little bit of a Rupert Neve fetish going on right now. We have tons of Rupert Neve channels. We have 500 series. We have Shelford. And a full 5088 console. No complaints there. There you go. It's like a bottle cap. Crazy.
We forgot to plug that in.
Here we are at the infamous StudioR, where we just installed a 5088 console. We're seconds away from powering it up. So what we have is basically a little section here for all the guitar playing performance, preamps for cabinets. We also have some direct and pedal boards and everything, and that goes into a Shelford, even if we're doing bass and stuff like that. It comes through here. We also have a full Kemper system over here. All the recording hard drives and stuff are going through a Blackmagic with SSDs. We have a SPL iron that is actually tied directly into the master bus, so it's always on the master bus. And then for tracking, we're doing distressors. We're using a dock with the iPad that you could use as a remote if you need to, running Logic on the main system. Oh, it's on. There you go.
Okay. Let's,
So I'm seeing the power blink when those go up. So something's not happening. So I'm turning that part off.
so it's only when you turn the penthouse on it does it?
Correct. So it's that second power supply. And what happens is instead of V1 lighting up and V2 lighting up, it goes boom, boom. And when it does that, you see the meters go boom, 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 And the lights are going on. Yep, right there. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Kill it. So in the last scene, you saw that we were having some issues with the penthouse, which was the 5051s and 5052s. When we turned on the power to them, it was kind of doing this ding-ding kind of clipping thing, and then the power would go off. Like there was some kind of fault in the power supply, which would be the 25-way power supply. And over time, Erik finally figured out what was going on. So why don't you tell us what solved that issue?
Yeah, so I ended up talking to the folks at Rupert Neve, and they quickly came back and said check the connections on the back of the penthouse side and the penthouse power supply side. You know, they kind of a plastic piece that fits in, and then you screw in the cap to fit it in. Well, apparently one of them on one of my 5051s was a bit wonky. So that single power supply not fully connecting is what was causing that jump, and they immediately knew that was the problem.
Was it almost like the screw-on was like cross-threaded or not pushed in all the way?
Yeah, if you don't screw it in, when you screw it in, if it doesn't easily slide on or easily screw on, you can tell that it's probably not going to be seated right.
Okay.
It was very finicky from that standpoint. So I just disconnected all of the power supplies in the back of the penthouse power supply unit, and then just started reconnecting one by one, and sure enough, figured out which one was the problem when I did that. So, But after that, I just pulled out the penthouse, pulled the power supply out, reconnected it, and everything was good after that.
Yeah, and that kind of reminds me of like how tube mics, the cabling on a tube mic, you usually push it in, you screw it, you push it a little more, screw it in, so that might give you an idea of what we're talking about. So it's been, a few weeks. You've had some time to play with the console. Now, you originally started with the 5059. Mm-hmm. And, of course, you were in the box originally before, but then 5059. Now that you've had this, what are some of the things that you're hearing? What's your experience at this point?
Yeah, so I had some fairly advanced mixes that I've been working on through the 5059, and took those and then rerouted into the console, and it was stunning. The noise floor on this thing is so low that I could hear stuff that I did not hear when I ran it through just the 5059. So
nice.
I ended up going back and needing to do a bunch of remixing to account for that much better sensitivity, right? There's a lot of stuff that I could hear that I couldn't hear before. And even more than that, I've always gone from in the DAW to using a summing box like the 5059. You could tell there's a lot more separation and clarity in the sounds in the mix, put together, right? With this thing, it dwarfs that by a long shot.
Wow.
Everything is just really deeply and nicely set. I actually threw a mix to one of my friends, let him listen to it. He basically said everything just sits nicely in the mix.
Nice.
And the other thing I noticed was, and I sent you a video that the first day I had the console up and running, I took raw drums, just a raw drum kit, and slapped it into the channels on the console, and with very little work, I had a very nice sounding drum kit, right? As opposed to where you in the DAW and you're pulling down an EQ and tweaking this and doing that and doing a bunch of stuff to get a really nice polished drum sound.
Right.
I really didn't have to work that hard in this to get that same kind of sound.
Nice.
So that kind of drove me to, okay, I'm going to stop playing with my food in the DAW, and I'm going to start using the EQ on the desk, right? Because there's a lot better sounding, better melding of those EQ frequencies, at least in my estimation, when I did that. So it's kind of changed the way I've mixed to where now I'm working on my next album, and I'm actually starting to think I'm going to turn off all the EQs on a lot of my tracks in the DAW and run it through the desk.
Do you feel, have you tried the... pushing the desk harder compared to running it normally?
Man, I've got needles running on red all over the place in this thing, and it is amazing. I mean, it when I first did it, right, I'd have the master meters up there, bouncing in the middle of the red stuff, and I get really anxious. This is bad, right?
Right.
Shouldn't be doing this, but it sounds great.
So, if you could describe to somebody what the difference, like, let's say, your peaks were at +3, or you're dancing around 0. Compared to, let's say, pushing it at extra, 5 dB, you tell me what that is. What would be the difference that you would hear on that?
I think the best way to describe it is the bass. So when I'm running my bass, through the desk, and I have it dedicated on 2 of my 5051 channels, so I've got compression and the EQ on there, and I'm pushing the bass all the way to the top. I mean, I'm really pushing it hard, and you can feel it. I mean, it's not just you listen to a mix and you can hear the different frequencies and everything kind of melds when you're doing your mix work. With the bass, it's just kind of glued in everywhere. It's kind of all over throughout, and it really fills in that bottom part. There's no real way. You have to listen to it to hear it, right? But it's just, it fills in all those spots on the bottom. That sounds really badass.
That's awesome. Now, I know you've tracked a lot with the 542s.
Mm-hmm.
Has that hopped into your stereo bus at all, or no need to at this point because you've already tracked with it?
The only thing I am doing with my stereo bus on this is run it through the SPL iron on the mix insert, and that's it. Everything else, I don't need that because it's kind of it just has this nice glued sound that I wouldn't even. It never even crossed my mind to do something like a 542 in the mix bus, and I never really was a fan of that before. When I had the summing box, that wasn't something that really sounded that great to me. 542s to me sounded better on the individual tracks on the way in.
Okay, and tell us a little bit more about like when you're getting the drum sounds and all this stuff, and it's just working. Are you putting silk on that, or is that just raw, or like what's going on?
So I have most of my silk buttons all basically preset at about the 3 o'clock position. I find that's enough. So pretty much every time I turn the desk on, I've got the red silk on for most of my channels on the 5052 side, right?
Okay.
Maybe a couple I might turn into blue or not have them at all. But I find the silk is really, I can still hear the difference, even on this desk, right? Before when I'd take the 5059 and I'd go silk on, silk off and do an A-B on those, you can hear a difference.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't need to have the knob cranked all the way up.
Sure.
You know, maybe like a 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock position for me was one of those where on, off, I can hear it, right?
Sure.
So in this, it kind of really puts that nice polish on all the individual tracks. And the thing I like about this is on the 5059, stereo 1 and stereo 2, you got one color silk for each, right? Those are your only options. Whereas now, I can tailor that, whether it's a guitar track or an acoustic guitar track or something else, I can kind of play with that if I want to. But
blue or red,
or even the amount, right? But right now where I'm at, I'm basically just running solid red silk across the board for the tracks that I have programmed into the desk.
Okay.
And it sounds great.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So in the future, we're going to be doing some more mix comparisons. Like I mentioned before, with the 5060, the 5059. Not sure if we'll have a 5057 here, but kind of comparable to the 5059. And we're going to do some more A and Bs and kind of, give you some more ideas about how this system is running. And if you guys have questions or you want to put some comments below, and we'll consider that to put that into the next video, more than happy to do so. Of course, we're here to help you, and so fire away. Give us all the questions you have. So when you installed the desk, obviously you spent weeks preparing for this. You did all your signal flow diagrams. You did all this stuff. How did that fare out once you got the desk and you were actually wiring stuff together? What was there anything missing? Like what was going on?
So I think I messed up one wire. I misread one wire in terms of connectors on both ends. So I ended up having to get another wire after we installed the desk to connect the 500 series. But bigger than that was I did spend a lot of time looking at signal flow and charting things out in terms of what was going to go where. Out the back end of the desk, and
because you could wire this multiple ways if you want. Yeah,
there are literally dozens and dozens of ways to do this, right?
Right.
Particularly in a hybrid environment, right? When we talk about taking stuff in and then back or out from the computer back in, there's a lot of ways to do this. And now when you start adding microphones, for me, I'm not using the desk mic pre's, right? I'm using my own mic pre's that are not located with the desk. So that adds a bit of complication. The one thing that I missed in that whole discussion was the software configuration of my music interface, my Apogee Symphony, right? Where I hadn't thought about the implications of that. So in the week or two that followed installing the desk, I ended up doing some patch bay changes and then doing a few more connections just because I I hadn't really figured that out when I plugged everything in, right? I knew I had enough goes in and goes outs,
Right,
because
right.
I upgraded that to 32 I/O.
Sure.
But there's some details with that. For example, in Logic Pro, their stereo out is locked to channels 1 and 2. Right?
You can't move it to
You can't
23,
move it.
24
Right,
or
right.
something like that.
So my approach with the desk was I was going to have the 5088 for 16 channels and then my 5059 for the other 16 channels.
Right.
Right? Because originally I wanted to have a 32 channel 5088. That ain't happening anytime soon for mere mortals like us, right?
Right.
So that caused me to have to rearrange and shift some stuff around. And the second thing out of that is you have to spend some time in the hybrid environment thinking about how you're going to template your session in Logic, right?
Mhm.
So for me, the way I wanted to set this up was I want everything always going to the same 2 channel strips stereo-wise on the desk.
Okay.
Right? That way I've got things figured out and controlled. Now I just need to funnel from the DAW to the console, and then everything kind of gets baked together and then puked back into the DAW.
Right.
So there was some thought process that had to be done, and I went through probably 4 or 5 iterations of templates till I finally got to something I was happy with.
So are you taking like drums, stereo out coming through?
Yeah.
Is that, or is it more spread out than that?
The drums are a little bit more complicated, and you and I talked about this because I do a drum bus in the box, right,
Mhm.
with a plug-in SSLG,
Okay.
and the way I originally had this set up, I couldn't do that, right? I would have to go buy a hardware SSLG in the 500 series to be able to do that, which would be cool, but I've already got the plugins, and I'm very happy with how that works on the drum bus. So the way I had this set up was anything that goes to my drum bus stays in the box, and then the drum bus goes out into the desk. Actually, it goes into the 5059.
Okay.
And then hi-hat, ride, overheads, room mics, all populate into the 5059. Right?
Okay.
And then my guitars, bass, solo guitars, Vox, and acoustics all go through the desk.
Okay.
So it was a little bit of a shell game to figure out which was going to go where.
And so you have some mono and some are stereo pairs?
The only 2 mono ones I have are my hi-hat and the ride. Everything else is stereo pairs.
Okay.
Okay. The one thing I knew I did want to have, because this desk, the one I bought it had 12 5052 mic pre's, right, with Silk, and then it had 4 5051s with EQ and compression.
Right.
So I wanted to use the compressors on the desk, and the 2 things that I'm going to do compression most on in my mix were bass and my acoustic guitars. So those 2 are populating my 4 5051s so that I can run the compression in the console versus doing it up top.
And that still has Silk available?
It does not have Silk in the 5051s, right?
Okay. All
But
right.
for me, my recording chain always goes through a 542, which has Silk on it. So my stuff is already coming into the box with Silk applied, right?
Okay.
So I wasn't too worried about that from that standpoint. And even if I didn't have it coming through, like someone sends me their mix and it doesn't, it was just digitally recorded, I can always run their tracks through a 542 and then
Right.
run it through that way, right? So
Nice.
it's not too bad, but it worked out well. Just figuring out how everything, where its place was in that big scheme of things. And again, the hybrid environment is one where it becomes a little bit more complicated, right?
Right.
And that's, some people gripe about that because it's a little bit more work, right?
Right.
You need to play with your food a little bit to take this to go here and this to go here, and everything kind of goes back, and you got to print a mix. But for me, it hasn't really been an issue, especially in comparison to the quality of the sound that I'm getting, right?
One of the other cool things I like about the penthouse is you could actually get, if you have enough space, put a 19-inch rack mount in. You could also put in a 500 series in a 19-inch rack. And so you could line this area up top, like we have some blank space there.
Yep.
If it was wide enough, you could actually fit a bunch of 542s or whatever you want in there.
Unfortunately, the space above the master module is not wide enough for a 19-inch rack, so
Right.
it has to occupy the left side, right?
Right.
But yeah, when I first talked to Rupert Neve about getting a custom, a desk made by them, that was my game plan. I wanted to start with not having to spend the very expensive part to occupy, fill out the or the penthouse,
Right.
and just use 500 series stuff,
Right.
at least for the interim time, right?
Sure.
And obviously with this deal I got, I didn't have to worry about that.
Right, right. That's awesome. So now that we're here, we have the console. Obviously, this is a big investment compared to just a piece of rack gear. When you came to me and you said the 5059's killing it, but you feel like there's more to go, You're still looking for something. The itch is not scratched yet. And I'm sitting there going, are you sure? Are you sure that's where you're going? You now have this console. Did it scratch the itch?
Absolutely. Yep. So when I first got that 5059 and started playing with the sounds I could get out of that, and was floored, and you and I have talked about this plenty of times, where you've got that separation, that spread of music, right? Where you can actually hear a snare very clearly sitting in that mix, right? Or that tom sitting in that mix, right? And just the way everything kind of melds together, that summing box was really impressive. But I knew that there was a next step to that. I had done a lot of research, after getting the 5059, I looked a lot into analog gear, right? Analog desks and stuff like this. And I had read a lot about folks making some of the fairly large statements about, it's even better separation of sounds and that kind of stuff. So I knew there was a next level. And when I came across this deal that I couldn't pass up, it was time to jump in with both feet. Mm-hmm. So the thing that I've noticed with this is it makes mixing a lot easier, right? I mean, when I first got the desk, I sent you I think it was a message about that, where I took just a raw drum kit, threw it into the desk, and a couple of tweaks on EQ, a couple of tweaks on some compression, and I was at a really nice drum kit sound, right? The same amount of work would have taken me probably an hour or two on the DAW, playing with your food, putting in plugins, doing, transient masters and all those kinds of things.
Right.
It didn't really take that much work to get a great sound out of this desk, right? So that was kind of my start, where I thought, wow, this is going to be good, right? And then pushing it. And we talked about this a little bit previously, where, man, in the Sound City video documentary that you talked about, where the guy was describing the Neve desk and said, you can push it a little bit and it starts to distort, sounds good. Push it even more, it still sounds good. And that's really what this desk does, right? Where I can really start to run with this and really make some really gigantic, or maybe not gigantic sounds out of that. And that's exactly what I was looking for, right? I wanted to take my music, or music that I'm mixing for other folks, and be able to quickly and efficiently run it into the desk and have it sound good without having to do a bunch of stuff in the box.
Right.
And then secondly, be able to throw something at that music that really makes it stand out, really pushes it.
Nice.
And I think I got all that with this. So I'm definitely happy with my investment thus far. There's a lot of space to be covered yet. All right. I still got a lot to learn about how the unique traits of the desk, but I think all in all, this is going to be a really exciting journey.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on the 5088 console.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's just a beast.
It's badass.
It's amazing. If you want any more information about Erik's studio, it's StudioRmusic.com. And if you need anything from Pure Wave Audio, PureWaveAudio.com, and education at thestudioedge.com. Till next time, have a great day.